right, so Jack, Brad, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you guys taking the time today to talk about Neato. And as I was saying before we started the recording, use this as an opportunity to promote it and tell people what it's all about. So why don't we just start with the basics? What is Neato and why was it formed?
I guess I'll go, and Brad can add his 2 cents worth. It kind of came about almost, I don't want to say if by accident's really the right word, but it kind of did, in where in our industry, right when the pandemic hit, within the first couple of weeks, there was a conference call that with a group of people that started to take place on a probably 2 or 3 times a week. And on that conference call was basically that Michael Rapino, the head of Live Nation, Jay Marciano, the top guy at AEG, Rob Light at CAA. I'm not sure who would have been from WME. You know, all the heads of the major agencies. And they also invited Frank Riley, the owner of High Road Touring, to participate. And at some point, I think after maybe the second or third call that he had with those people, he decided to reach out to some other colleagues that owned, that ran independent booking agencies, people that I think he had relationships with and liked and respected. And probably happened to think of in the time that he was writing this email, there might have been more people, or on a different day, it might have been a slightly different cast of characters. But he reached out to about 14 or 15 of us and invited us to have a call where he was essentially being a conduit of information of what was being discussed on this call. And then we would talk about it, and if we had questions, he was going to try to ask them at some point in the conversation. So that went on for a couple of weeks where we had calls, and we would get updates from him. And there was a point in time where Live Nation AG were going to be uniform and what their new deals were going to be moving forward, and that didn't even. They didn't even get in the gate together to get out of the gate together on that particular issue. But at the same time, NEVA, the Independent Venue Association, started to form. And they hired a lobbyist, and they organized, and they started to have their own voice. And we saw that, and I think for a lot of reasons, but one of which being that is important as it is for the independent venues to survive on many levels, including our businesses ourselves. If they were to get be successful in getting some financial relief from our government, they're in a different. Brad? What is the name of? Is it the NACIS code? Is that the proper?
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Yeah.
Every type of business in this country is kind of categorized in terms of the government, and you have our own number, and our number as independent agents is 711410. The venues aren't they have a different number. So we looked at that and figured out that we really needed to have our own voice. And so at that point, we decided to form a coalition, a group. The other thing I should mention is, and I think Brad would second this, we all, even though, there's some people like myself and Brad who've known each other for over 30 years. And there was other people, and that's probably true for half of the people. For me personally, 20 plus years with many of those people. And there was other people that I certainly knew who they were, but I had never spoken to in my life. And some people kind of in between that. And we all, I think, really really liked each other. And these calls turned almost into kind of a group therapy.
I agree.
Yeah,
Agents Anonymous.
yeah, yeah.
I had never been on a Zoom call before, and Jack hit the nail on the head. It was kind of, you could use the word that Neato developed organically, but it was kind of an accident. It all of a sudden became something. But the group therapy aspect of it, I still say the Zoom calls with Neato are the highlight of my week. I really mean it. I feel like there's a community that's been building. Everybody's like very open about their businesses, and it's a really, really good thing. It's surprisingly, it's amazing to me how everybody, like you're saying, Jack, kind of connects, and people that we don't know. So yeah, it's the highlight of my week. It's like I'm sitting at the desk 10 minutes before, waiting for Frank Riley to let me in.
Yeah.
And so we're here, it's the beginning of July. Do you guys have a sense of approximately how many members are currently part of the organization?
I think it's help me out, Jack. 72 agents.
It's more than that now because I'm on the membership committee, so I see the stuff kind of come in every day. We've had a few this week. I would say, including the founding 14 agencies, we're probably at about 75 independent agencies now. Management companies, it's probably a little less than that. But the more and more, I can tell you just today, or overnight, 2 or 3 more of those joined. And we really haven't made as a concerted effort to reach out to those companies as we have to the agencies. But one thing to note in here before I forget is that getting back to that NACIS code, the other type of music industry business that is in the same code as us are, drumroll, independent management companies. So they have every reason to join us as well. And to the best of my knowledge, I think we are the only organization that has a lobbyist that is lobbying on behalf of our particular code.
And it's worth mentioning, there's also a growing list of independent artists for Neato as well.
Yes.
And I was going to have you guys talk a little bit about that in a second. If I'm an independent artist listening, what would be some of the reasons for me to sign up, as well as if I'm an independent management agency? We should just kind of talk about that now. Or this is also I'm going to lump a couple of questions in, so you guys feel free to take them.
Okay.
Along those lines too, and maybe this fits into that. So what are some of the current goals for the organization? And then what are some of the long-term goals for the organization?
This is going to sound a little bit, we need to survive. So what we're trying to do for everyone in the organization is get to the point where it's safe out there in the world and we can start, booking our artists, routing tours, taking care of ourselves. So there's an immediate need, which is how do we get to the vaccine or wherever you think things will kick in, which means I think Jack mentioned, we engaged a lobbyist as well. We have a full-time publicist, a national publicist. We have attorneys. And we got all the stuff. We're setting up a structure for the short term, which is the long term. Let's just say a vaccine comes next June. Survive till then, which means getting some support from, the government. We've done outreach to every agency where they're based. Did an outreach to their local senator, to their senators, their state their two senators, and their Congress people. So here I'm in Marin County, so it's Kamala Harris and Dianne Feinstein, and our congressman is Jared Huffman, and he's actually based here in Marin County. So we did outreach to all those people. So we're trying to answer your question, we're trying to survive, get to that point where we can be self-sufficient again and do what we want to do, which is book music, be around music, and participate in that whole thing. but that's also the short-term goal. I don't know, Jack, can you help me out on that a little
Well,
bit?
I think also, immediate, we would like to try to get more PPP for our businesses, like to also supporting extending the additional funds for uh, unemployment, which would be those would be a benefit to the independent artists, obviously, as well.
Keep the
As well
$600.
as just having their agencies, if they're with an independent agency, helping them survive. So that would certainly be in their interest. But I think beyond the economic things that we're hoping to achieve, we're also planning on this organization lasting well past this pandemic. And, we've already held one town hall. We're going to be doing that more as time goes on. We are also, in terms of the agencies and managers, sharing information. We're going to be offering like a mentoring program. We're going to, we've already started. We have a list of independent promoters that we, on a state by state basis, that, if somebody's had a really positive experience or preferably experiences with, we put their information.
Sharing all our contacts.
And then also conversely, if a particular buyer or club owner does the wrong thing in terms of one of our clients, we're going to lobby together as a group against that particular club. So there's definitely strength in numbers. Yesterday we had a conference call with two of the high up gentlemen at Live Nation, in terms of talking to them about their deal structures and their language in terms of pandemic, and basically approaching them as a group, which gives us a lot more strength than any one of us on an individual basis. I mean, the fact that they got on there for an hour and talked to all this, I mean, kind of illustrates that point, that there's strength in numbers.
And I wanted to add that the 14 founding agencies represent just the 14 founders. Now it's whatever it is, Jack, 76 or whatever, yeah. 2,000 artists. That's strength in numbers in my book. I mean, I almost fell off my chair when I heard that.
Yeah, and a lot of shows. We did a breakdown. It's somewhere, and how many total shows in 2019 our clients performed in each state. Also with, number of, tickets sold, the average, the grosses of those shows. You're talking, I mean, it's big numbers, and it adds up. And that's not even factoring all the other kind of revenue streams that our clients going and playing in a particular place help generate, right? Whether it's advertising from the venue to radio stations to print media to websites to restaurants and hotels, etc.
Sure. Well, and I would say too, as a member, it was so valuable to have some sort of direction and clarity as to how I can try and interact with Congress. And that simply means just, who do I write a letter to? What should it say? And also one thing, Jack, you mentioned the town hall that just took place, and we should mention, people can certainly check that out if they missed it. What I found really helpful too was getting an understanding of the timing of all this, and being more tuned into Congress. They're going to go on a big break here because it's the summer, right? So the timeliness of getting those letters to them, like now or 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, and then understanding when they come back, what are they going to be talking about? So it's so important that anybody who is listening to this, who is running an independent agency, gets the sort of urgency of this.
The time is definitely now. You've got a situation where the ending date for the first round of PPP just ended. The additional $600 per week for everybody that's on unemployment ends in a month.
Yep.
And I would say, so I could be wrong, but I was reading about that. The language that was published for that was very misleading, and it's possible, could be wrong, it's possible the actual $600 ends in a week. So we're at July 1st here. Could be wrong, but it depends what you're reading.
Okay.
Anyway, further illustrates the point of the urgency of the timing.
Right, and that I think it goes, you figure that Congress, with all those things going on, it seemed, logically, you seem to think that they're going to be making a lot of decisions that are going to have an effect on us and a lot of other people in the next 3 weeks, between now and certainly between the end of next month. They're going to have to figure some things out. I do think that that everybody in general, it's probably a much better thing that if something like this was going to happen, I am thankful that it happened in an election year. There's a lot of people there that are voting on things that want to get re-upped for their job this fall.
That's for sure.
And there is nothing that inspires politicians more than getting reelected.
Yeah. I was thinking about this, just kind of going into our conversation. I'm personally not a member of, and I'm probably going to get the acronym wrong, NAMPEMA, the North American, you guys know what I'm talking about.
I did too.
I guess my question is there any overlap between this organization and that one? I would assume a lot of those members are now part of this organization anyway.
I think there's certainly people that are members of both. There hasn't really been any kind of a formal reach out. We have discussed that organization and perhaps, trying to establish some relationship with them. I would say the one organization that we've had a much more deeper kind of working relationship with, it's NEVA.
Yeah, we're leaning on them, and hopefully now that Neato is becoming a little more organized, functional, participatory, we have the lobbyists, all that kind of stuff. Hopefully they're leaning on us too. But that's the natural one for Neato, is NEVA for sure.
Right.
And there is interaction between their board and our board.
Yeah, we have a lot more in common with those people. Our mutual survival is critical to each other. And one other thing I want to add in terms of getting back to a second, because I feel like we addressed some reasons why independent management companies should join Neato, if above and beyond anything else, the fact that we're the only lobbying group that's trying to help them get government money. In fact, I don't know that I would have to list a second reason. I would think that would be good enough. But in terms of artists, besides the fact of, if you're with an independent agency about their survival, we will be offering things that I think, there's a resource guide on our site in terms of, different organizations that are helping, funds for musicians that, and in terms of, I think, probably down, in terms of different options and things for like trying to do streaming and things like that while the shutdown takes place. So there are some more direct benefits for artists as well. And I would also say we've also gotten some pretty high profile artists that have signed up. Robert Plant is a member of Neato. Jeff Tweedy. I just wrote a welcome email to Lucinda Williams today. There's a lot of our clients, of the agencies have joined. Brittany Howard, Alabama Shakes, and but that's we're probably getting more musicians and bands joining volume wise right now than booking agencies and management companies, but there's a lot more artists as well. So
right. Well, I'll be sure to put up the actual link when we put this episode out, but just for people listening, it's neatolive.org, NITO live.org, where you can find all the information that Jack and Brad are talking about.
Right.
I was going to ask you guys, because we have a wide variety of people who listen to this, presenters, artists, agents, managers. And so I'm just kind of curious to hear from both of you from a booking perspective. What's your take? What's your take on any shows happening between now and the end of 2020? You know, it's clearly depends who you're talking to and what state they're in. But
Me.
yeah,
Let me talk.
Brad, I
Go
see you
for it.
raising your hand.
Um, large gatherings are not happening this year, and it's been amazing to me that festivals move their dates, and there were still some big festivals pulling the plug this week. To me, the large gathering thing seemed, I think I can even actually speak for our group, that everybody kind of felt a couple months ago that just wasn't going to happen.
Nor was it the right thing to happen.
No, the right thing to do was to cancel. You got that right. So anyway, that was interesting to me. And I had one conversation this morning with somebody well, we talked about it before we went live. But as far as touring, a little extreme on this. 2020 to me is not going to happen. If something amazing, a miracle shows up, then maybe people can book locally or in their region. I don't think the restricted capacity works for most people. I think that's an iffy proposition. But people want to do business. People want to have commerce. People want to get back out there. I support that. But if something miraculous happens, it'll have to be local and regional. You just can't imagine any, routed touring happening this year. And to take it out to the end, based on our behavior as a country, I don't think we're back in the game until we have a vaccine. I really believe that's going to get us back, and we can start to rebuild our business. Until that happens, it just doesn't look very good. Here in California, we were doing great, and we had 9,000 cases yesterday or something like that. So the virus is everywhere, and I know they can come up with, or they will, some kind of therapy or curative, and I know they can do more testing, and maybe we get a new president, and I know they can do contact. I just think all that stuff is just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So to be blunt, I think it's next June of 2021 when we can resume some kind of regular touring. If somebody says to me, can I move my date to May 21st? Of course, let's see what happens. That seems realistic. After moving tours 3 and 4 times, or individual dates 3 and 4 or 5 times, you realize that's a problem at many levels. It confuses your fan base as well. If you were booked in May, and then you're booked in July, and then you're booked in September. I just think, I've been encouraging people to go far out and bet on the vaccine and feel like the date actually has a chance to play through. But I'm glad it's July 1st, because now I can say it's 11 months away rather than a year. Feel better.
Well, it's probably also
I'm a little bit doom and gloom on that one.
Well,
yeah, I think that in terms, I think first and foremost, because there's no national plan. So you've got a situation, let's say Brad or I have an artist that's going to go out on a 10-day run, and they're going to play 8 shows in 8 different cities in 5 different states. Well, in order for that to work, you've got to have 8 mayors and 5 governors to all be on the same page.
Right.
All of them have to be on the same page for that tour to work. And I don't see that as being reality for quite a while. I do think there's going to be regional things that happen. I live in New Hampshire. They're on the verge of actually allowing, we're one of the 2 green states at the moment. In other words, where cases are actually going down in this state. And And there's been a couple of places that have been doing outdoor things. There's been a venue that's been doing parking lot shows. I think that's been going okay, but that's an intimate situation where, I think in some of these other cases, on the call that we were on yesterday with Live Nation talking about drive-in shows, they're already seem to be kind of souring on that, and they're not selling very well. But they're also doing situations where, it's like 1,000 cars. Well, if you're the 982nd car, how much of a great experience can that be if you've got 862 cars in front of you, and you're sitting in your car?
Yeah, and you show your applause by honking.
So yeah, I in terms of the touring, I do think that logically smaller venues will be doing things sooner than bigger venues. And yeah, I definitely don't see that happening in this calendar year.
Well, it's worth mentioning too, or maybe it goes without saying, how does all this translate if I'm an artist? What are you guys hearing from your own artists in terms of their confidence level? If you were to tell them, oh, we have every reason to think this show is going to whatever show is going to happen 3 months from now, but you have to get on a plane. There will be social distancing on the seats. I mean, are you guys across the board hearing, yes, I want the work from your artists? Or, what are you hearing? Because like for me, even if we're talking about an artist that lives in New York City, and say we're talking about a small club that's planning to reopen soon with social distancing as a major requirement, I'm not hearing that they, in my humble experience, I'm not hearing that they want to do it. And that doesn't even take into consideration getting onto a plane. So.
Yeah, no, I in my case with my clients, I don't have anybody calling me up looking for work. And way more often than not, when there's something that is coming up on the horizon that looks like it might happen, and the buyer is still thinking it's going to happen, as that gets closer, what's really happening with my clients is they're actually saying, I don't feel safe. I don't want to go and play that situation. So I think by and large my clients are not feeling, they don't want to work anytime soon. And I think a lot of things out there on the playing field are going to have to change before, but I'm thankful that that's their attitude, about it. That makes things easier. I think it's the right attitude. I think it's the realistic attitude, but I'm thankful about that. Brad, I don't know what your experience has been with your family.
Well, it's been a process. I think it's taken a few months for everybody to get to that place where it doesn't make sense to tour. It is not the right thing to do. The reality is, all the agents went through this as well. It was, oh yeah, we're going to have some, activity in the summer, and we'll have some activity in the fall. And then it was, we're praying for some activity in the fall. I mean, reality bit everybody pretty hard. And for those artists who generate most of their income from the live situation, they had to deal with the stress there of their own, unique financial situations. But just yesterday, somebody was, thanking me for, sharing lots of information with them. The community of Neato shares tons of stuff. Somebody comes across something that relates to PPP and they send it around, or somebody comes across something that's related to restricted openings, or we're sharing information all the time. And I got to a point where I just thought, well, I'm not going to send everything, to the artist, but I started sending them some of these links, and it lays it out pretty clearly. So yeah, people are appreciative of, getting the information, but I was in denial at the beginning. So, it's, oh yeah, 2 months, whatever. Same thing for the artist. But I think everybody works through that stuff. And that's not to say that it is not stressful, on the financial side of things. It is, that's real. But yeah, I think most artists now are looking at, this is going to take time, and we're not going to come roaring back when we do get back out there.
Yeah, and I think another thing, and another important thing for us as agents, and I kind of pretty early on in this process, the information was kind of, settling in and the reality was setting in, I figured out that in terms of with my clients, and in terms of when and where they start working again, that it was not my place to lobby them to either go play or not play. That had to be their own personal decision. And I would be happy to get as much, if they had questions and if they wanted information, I was more than happy to do that, so they could, to help them make the best informed decision that they could make. But that's a very personal thing, and it's not my place to try to get them to do something or not do something.
Right.
Thanks, Gandhi. Thank you, Gandhi.
Well, and also, I mean, even without doing shows and traveling and everything, the music community has lost a fair amount of its elderly members due to the virus, just by way of them being in that high risk category.
Yeah.
So it's increasingly difficult.
I've lost one client, Ellis Marsalis, as a result of the disease. He had other medical issues, which made him incredibly high risk for it. He had multiple other medical issues, but he died of COVID-19. Then I had another client, John Pizzarelli, who lost his parents 1 week apart.
Both due to the virus.
Both due to the virus. Now, they were both in their 90s. Again, in the case, I'm not sure with his mother, but in the case of his father, Bucky, who was a pretty noted guitar player as well, other medical issues as well. But it's, so it's definitely hit, people that I know. Mm-hmm. It's a very real thing, Right.
So one thing we've all had to adjust to is live streaming. And I'm kind of curious, are your artists doing live streaming? Because I have a couple of follow-up questions that relate directly to Neato with that. So let's just start with that.
Yeah, we've done quite a few, kind of from the beginning, because we have, some of our artists are solo performers. It was a easy thing for them to do, and worthwhile, I think. And it's nice to see that the production values are going up and everything is getting a little more, pro. That's good. There's been a few of them that I've watched that I thought were really good. But, for me, I'm an old guy, no substitute for the live situation. But I get it. And I understand it's going to be part of the deal from here on out. There's a venue near you guys that has cameras and a studio, and it's a live venue, and they're going to start to do shows. And I think those things will work, for sure. I don't know if a year from now people will be into watching somebody from their living room couch. And the tip jar thing, I think, needs to go away personally. If this is going to be a real thing, I think somebody needs to figure out how to charge for it, what would be appropriate. I've lost interest in the tip jar thing.
What about you, Jack?
I mean, I've had some do it. I mean, I think for the, my jazz clients, that's kind of hard. to pull off, they're all, many of them don't live in the same city, so you can't get them in the same room. So, to play musically things that are that kind of intricate and complicated from 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different locations isn't really, going to work. So, but in terms of some of my other artists, a few have. I won't say that a lot. It's definitely a minority, but in some cases, I've had artists, for example, Davina and the Vagabonds, where she's, done her own thing. She's doing about one a month, and she generates a fair, a decent amount of, probably covers a good chunk of her monthly expenses, and we're actually talking about maybe doing something with her at actually, because her and the band all live in Minneapolis. At least they're in the same, city. But we're talking about maybe going into the Dakota there, club in Minneapolis, for those who don't know, and, doing a live streaming thing through the Dakota's site, that would charge and would, and something like that. And I think that could actually do, quite what, I would expect that that would probably generate 3 or 4 times the amount of money that she's doing with things on her own. But yeah, I'm kind of with Brad in that, I'm not, I happen to have you can't quite see it, but about a 75-inch TV with a 5.1 surround sound system. So I'm not really watching music on my computer. So, but, there's a whole, large group of people that do a lot more things on their computer than I do, personally. So, but I wonder at a certain point when people lose interest in that.
Well, I feel like
I don't know the answer, but
yeah.
But there's also, I'll mention, there's some really successful, one of the other agents, that founding member of Neato, and Brad, maybe correct me, but it was with an indie rock band, but they generated, I want to say they did a thing and generated almost, I think, total gross of about $90,000.
Yeah, but I think it was like 9,000 people at $10.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
Yeah, but it was a live thing, and they really marketed it hard. But I think for probably the younger your demographic, your fan base is, probably the more successful streaming events are going to be. Just the fact that typically younger people are more active on their computers. So
right, I think it puts the artist in a difficult position because on the one hand they're hungry to perform and do whatever they can from their apartments or their homes during this whole time, and they want to stay in touch with their fans as best that they can. But on the other hand, if you're doing this, even if you're just doing this once a week, that becomes too much because you lose sight of the experience from a fan's perspective, who has no reason to tune in week to week to week when they're used to seeing you maybe once a year live, right? So it's like I think for artists listening, you don't want to think of live streaming as replacing the stage. It's a completely different thing that needs to be taken advantage of in a completely different way. It shouldn't be to replicate the live show by any means. Yeah. Nothing about it should. So I guess my question for Neato though is, given that that's sort of the reality that we're all in, does Neato have a role in live streaming? How do we, the other part of that question too, quite frankly, is like, how do we as agents provide value to artists who are only doing live streaming? Or can we? I don't know.
That's a good question. I don't know that I have a great answer to that. I don't, I mean, I really personally haven't gotten, very, the vast majority of cases, I haven't, as a company, we haven't gotten involved
right.
With artists doing that, because they're doing it on their social media. They don't, much like I'm not involved in getting a revenue stream from, their publishing or
right.
Record CD sales at the gig or whatever. That's a different stream. But I'm, on the other hand, it's definitely a way that it helps subsidize these artists, who need to be subsidized right now, so I'm all for it. But I think, in some cases, I think artists may be coming up with pretty unique things in terms of the streaming thing, something that you can't, maybe it's a collaboration with another artist that happens to be in town, or I don't know, maybe they pull out and they do a whole one of their records and sequencing in its entirety or something like that, and give it like something that's special that, they've never done before. That could probably give you some added value and get some people interested. But, I mean, again, how many ideas, how long can you keep doing that,
Right. Yeah, I think speaking to your point about oversaturation, my response to that is they can't miss you if you don't go away. So if you're doing one every couple of weeks, it's probably gonna diminishing returns, I think, unfortunately. Having said that, what Jack's saying is true. It's evolving. I mean, it's getting better. There's no doubt about it. And artists are becoming, more creative with it. There's platforms being set up to, you wind up doing you go to a studio space where it's going to sound great, where they've got good cameras. And somebody was mentioning yesterday that, you pick 10 clubs or 10 venues that you typically play once a year, and you involve the clubs and play for your fans. So maybe you can play for those, Ann Arbor and Cleveland and Chicago and Milwaukee, Madison, Minneapolis, and tune into your clubs and tune into your audience. So yeah, it's evolving, and I think it's going to be with us. I mean, and there's some people that are making bold moves. Philadelphia Folk Festival, it's incredible. They're going to do their whole festival online. It's like 3 or 4 days of programming, 36 artists, something like that. I mean, it's impressive, and it comes under the umbrella of mega entrepreneurial risk. Is how I see it. They're just going to go for it. So as people invest in this, yeah, it's gonna stick in some places, I think, and be another way for the artists and the venues to, sell some tickets. But I do think you have to start selling tickets at some point, and that'll happen. But yeah, you can oversaturate. I agree.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much for your time today. Before we wrap up, is there anything about the organization that's worth mentioning that hasn't been mentioned? Seems like we covered a lot.
It's it's just a wonderful community. It's who your people are when you get on those Zoom calls or those town halls with Neato. I mean, they're just, it's just a wonderful community that, like Jack was saying, this thing will go on hopefully forever, and just, I mean, if you're an artist, there's absolutely no reason to not sign up. Takes you 10 seconds. You can become an associate member.
You can also become an associate member if you're a road manager.
Yes.
Or a travel agent, marketing person, anything associated with a band and on the road, you can join as well. And again, the artist managers, you've got a really vested interest in joining this organization.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, guys. And we mentioned it at the beginning, but I'll say it again. It's neatolive.org, NITOlive.org, and we'll have a link in the episode. Thanks again, guys. You guys good?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Mike.
Yeah, you bet.
Appreciate it. And a big hello to all my friends in the performing arts world.
Yeah.
Hope you're all hanging in there and are all healthy and safe, and hope to run into you soon somewhere, even if it has to be the Hilton in New York City.
Are you guys going to do the
looking forward to
virtual?
seeing this.
Well, there's the virtual Midwest Western Arts Alliance conference in October that we might see each other at.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be participating in that as well. And unfortunately, I don't imagine that APAP is going to be happening in person either, although they haven't made an announcement for that. But I just can't see, however many thousands of people go to APAP, going to Midtown Manhattan.
Why not?
In the intimate confines of the Midtown Hilton for 5 fun-filled days and nights. I don't think that's happening this year.
On that note, thanks again, guys.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye.